Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, Sarah and Chance Worldwide. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Chance.
So last week we asked you guys on Instagram to send us a few questions about your trip to Japan or traveling or budgeting or whatever. So today we're going to answer those questions in this video.
But it's way too nice outside, so we're actually going to take you on a trip with us to the park.
Yeah.
Let's head out.
So one thing that makes being in America for the spring better is that the flowers all come out like this in April and May in Denver, and it looks a little bit like cherry blossoms.
Alright, so I made it down to the park, walking around. Seems like a lot of people had the same idea as we did. A lot of people hanging out, having a great day in the park.
Beautiful. So I have the questions pulled up from Instagram that you guys all asked. If I don't answer your question, it's probably because we either filmed a video about it or we are planning to film a video about it. So I'm just gonna start asking some questions. The first one is, what is it like having tattoos while in Japan?
We haven't really had too many negative experiences with having tattoos in Japan, I guess.
We thought we would.
The only time I've ever had anyone mention my tattoos was on Halloween, where I had a tank top on. You could actually see my chest tattoo.
Yeah.
And then people were really excited about it.
But I mean, we do have visible tattoos in basic clothing, like just like arms and legs, like all tattooed. So people see them and they notice them, but honestly, we've gotten more like compliments and like happy smiles and interactions about it than negative, like even from old people in rural areas. So that was pretty surprising. But it is true that in Japan, it's very much in the past as it applies to tattoos. They still really consider them to be like a gang-related thing. So you're not allowed to go into any gyms. Like we can't weightlift in Japan, can't go to pools, like some big beaches even, we're not allowed to. And then obviously onsens are still like a huge no.
But we have had some of our friends show us some good resources on where to find onsen that you can go to with tattoos that don't mind. We'll link those in the description below.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're going to Japan and you have tattoos, you'll be fine. Don't even worry about it. Unless you're going to an onsen, a gym, or some other place where you have to
Remove your clothing.
Yes.
You'll be fine. So the next question that I have here is, what is a Suica card / why should you buy one?
Whoa, look at this spot. We should stop here for a break real quick. So, Suica or Pasmo. These are cards that you can get from train stations in Japan, and then use those whenever you go through a ticket gate. Just scan it, walk through, so you don't have to keep going and buying tickets and worrying about accumulating all of this change that you don't want to have because your pants will fall down because it'll be so heavy.
True. So as far as like necessity goes, no, you never have to buy a Suica card, but it only costs around $5 USD or 500 yen. And it is refundable. So like when you leave Japan, you can return it to Tokyo Station or Shinjuku Station or whatever and get that money back. And it really saves you a lot of time because as easy as it is to buy individual tickets for each train that you get on, it really is so much easier to just scan a card on the gate and walk straight through.
Now the Suica card is not a replacement for any kind of rail pass. You can't just buy the Suica card or the Pasmo card and expect it to be free travel. You still have to reload money onto it. So you're still paying for every train you get onto, but it'll save you a lot of time and energy going to the ticket machines and having to translate the ticket machines and then going through the gate and then having to, even if like say you go to a further away train station and you have to adjust your fare, it'll adjust it automatically. You don't have to take your ticket to a machine or any people and talk to them at all.
Yeah, it's so much easier if you're worried about like getting lost or being confused in the station. This really will make a huge difference for you. It won't save you money per se, like it's not a discount, it's not like a free travel card, it's just for convenience. So it is really easy to get the Suica card from major stations in Japan. There's also a lot of availability to buy it online before you go to Japan. We've never done this ourselves, so I can't recommend where to do that. But if you look into it, I'm sure you can do that. Also, there is an app that you can get on Android or iPhone right now that allows you to view your balance and load money onto it through your phone.
You hear that bird? Very loud. So we're gonna keep moving here.
Cool, so the next question we're gonna talk about is, what apps do you need to download before your trip to Japan to get around? And this one's super easy because nothing works as good as just Google Maps.
Seriously, Google Maps has been a lifesaver for us. Like, you can just pull up the map on Wi-Fi, and every train station has Wi-Fi if you don't have your own pocket Wi-Fi or a SIM card. And then you just type in where you want to go, and it'll show you which trains will take you there.
It even shows you what platforms you need to be on, what time to be there, what time the trains leave, all the trains departing later the day. Like, it's so comprehensive and so easy to use. And there are other apps that people use like Navitime and Hyperpedia, but I really don't know why when Google Maps is just the best one and it comes on your phone.
I agree.
The only thing that it gets a little complicated is when it comes to walking around. Like if you're walking a short distance, like say 0.2 miles from where you are to get to a restaurant, it is a little bit tricky, but it's still, in my opinion, better than any other map that you can use.
I agree.
So the next question is, how hard is it to be a vegan or a vegetarian in Japan?
It's actually ridiculously easy.
Amazing.
Being vegan in Japan. So vegetarian, even easier. Our first trip to Japan, we thought that it would be impossible to be vegan in Japan. And we were just gonna be eating simply like rice,
peanuts, fruit,
and not anything really exciting. Little did we know, we use an app called Happy Cow, and you can just search in a town or a city near you, and it'll show you a list of all the places with vegan and vegetarian options, as well as strictly vegetarian and vegan restaurants.
It even has like reviews and ratings and photos and a map. It's super awesome and super easy. Like, unless you're in like the deep countryside, there's usually dozens of restaurants that you could just walk to that have an option for you. And it's really good.
We've had some of the best food of our lives while being in Japan. So if you're a vegan vegetarian, don't worry at all. You'll be good to go.
Matter of fact, just be excited.
Yeah, definitely be excited.
It's super great.
And say you aren't around any restaurants, you can go to a convenience store and pick up all the ingredients you need to make a meal at your Airbnb, hotel if you only have a microwave, or even just a water heater. You can easily make a meal.
Yep, and if you don't have time to make a meal and you don't have money for restaurants, you can eat 1,000 different kinds of onigiri and just simple rice dishes. They have fruits and vegetables and nuts and trail mix and like so many things that you can get for like $1 at a 7-Eleven or a Family Mart. It's super easy.
And this isn't even mentioning supermarkets, so
True.
Your options are unlimited, really. And so the sun's high noon, and so we're gonna take some respite over there in that little cool building.
It's actually haunted.
Oh, shade feels so good.
So good. So the next question we're gonna answer is, should you book your Shinkansen trips in advance?
So there's this group we're on Facebook, and it seems like everyone always asks this question on whether or not they should book their Shinkansen tickets really far in advance, maybe like months out from their trip even. And in our experience, we've just booked ours when we show up to Japan and want to go, like the day before, a week before if we know we're gonna be there at a certain point in time.
And this is including like peak fall and peak spring. Like it's not Golden Week or anything, but it is like the two most popular seasons to be in Japan. The Shinkansens are really crowded when we're on them, and we've still never had an issue booking our seats in like the Shinjuku station per se the day before we want to travel.
Yeah, so we haven't really had any problems booking a seat or reserving a seat for our Shinkansen trips that I can remember, really.
Yeah, one time when we were there in the fall, they didn't have any reserved seats left, so we just got unreserved seat tickets, went to the platform and got in line early, like I think an hour or two early at most, and we stood for part of the trip because the seats were taken, and it was really fine. I mean, even if you had to stand for like a couple hours on a Shinkansen, it's so entertaining to be on it if you're by a window that it's not really an issue. There's a lot of space for luggage on them, so it's not like you're gonna be standing there holding 3 suitcases in your backpack. It's more of a relaxing time no matter what your situation is.
I remember that now, yeah. So all in all, you can book them really far in advance, but it's not very necessary unless you are going during Golden Week. Then I would book very far in advance. And for other times when it's not that busy, you can just show up to the unreserved cars. Show up, early for the train itself even. Get in line, get on the train. There's really plenty of seats open for you to sit in.
And just a pointer, if you do have a JR Rail Pass, reserved seating on the Shinkansens does come with your pass for free, so you don't have to pay extra to reserve a seat if that is your preference.
Yeah, just show up to any train station that has a JR facility, which is any JR station. So if there's a JR train that goes through that station and it says JR, you should be good. You can just walk up, and they usually even have plenty of people who know English and can help you book whichever train you're trying to take and give you pointers on which side you want to sit on to see Mount Fuji, or even help you figure out your itinerary for your trip.
Super helpful. So, the next question we're going to answer is, do you need a pocket Wi-Fi or a SIM card in Japan? I'd say yes and no. It kind of depends on you and your trip. If you're going to be staying in Tokyo for 1 week, I wouldn't say you need it because it is quite common to find free Wi-Fi in public areas in Tokyo. But even if you're going to be on a Shinkansen one time, I would recommend getting it because it makes it a lot easier to navigate your maps and to know where you are and where you're going, stay connected to the internet when you're not in a Lawson or a train station or a big business like that.
Many people argue that you can just download the offline map function for Google Maps, and then when you're on Wi-Fi at, say, a convenience store or some train stations even, and then you can just navigate from there. And if you're not planning on trying to get a hold of anybody via messaging apps, or streaming videos is not important to you, you're not really going to be using your phone too much, you could probably get away with that. It's just in those situations where you really do need to have data or Wi-Fi that you might find yourself lost.
And if you're going to be planning on taking any trips outside of a major city, so like a day trip from Tokyo or Osaka, or if you're planning on taking a Shinkansen out to like the eastern or western ends of Japan, it is a lot less easy to find places with free Wi-Fi. So in those cases, I would definitely recommend a pocket Wi-Fi or a SIM card. Both of them are relatively inexpensive, and it's really up to personal preference which you choose. We always choose pocket Wi-Fi because there's 2 of us, so we can use one and pay the same amount, and it's never been an issue of running out of data or slow speeds. It's always super reliable.
Yeah, I like to do lots of videos on our Instagrams and stuff like that. And if you only have, like, say, a SIM card with a couple of gigs of data, you will run out very, very quickly. So it's really nice for us to be able to have unlimited internet access for our entire trip. And it's always been fast and reliable for us. So that's definitely our choice.
Yeah, we've never rented a SIM card, but the one time we did have a friend in Japan who had a SIM card, it was pretty dodgy, and he did not enjoy his experience with that SIM card. So we've never had an experience like that with a pocket Wi-Fi, so we're gonna continue to use that for our trips.
All in all, I would say, even if you are very heavily against the idea of getting a pocket Wi-Fi, and don't want to get a SIM card, for that one scenario where you might be in trouble or in an emergency situation, I'd recommend picking up the smallest SIM card you possibly can when you arrive at your airport, so that you can just pop it in, see if you need it, and not have to worry.
And even for a trip as long as a month, you're gonna likely be spending $100 or less on a SIM card or a pocket Wi-Fi. It's really inexpensive.
Next question.
How much cash do you need while traveling, and where do you get Japanese cash?
So every time we've gone to Japan, we have taken out all the money we think we're going to spend while in Japan from a bank or other place to currency exchange, and just carried cash with us the entire time. We have like a backup. Every time we've gone to Japan, we just pick up our foreign currency from her bank or anywhere in the area that has a really good exchange rate, and just carry cash with us the entire time we're there.
And that really is helpful in Japan because they're a hugely cash-based society. You can use debit and credit cards in some establishments, but not all, and maybe not even half. So cash is pretty much a requirement if you're going to be in Japan.
The only exception would be if you have a debit card that doesn't have any daily limits on it, and or doesn't have foreign exchange fees or exchange rates or any kind of like limitations like that on it, because then you can just go to any 7-Eleven and withdraw the money from the ATM for no fee at all.
And the limit on that minimum wise is about $100. So do keep that in mind, that if you're about to run out of cash at the end of your trip, that really won't be an option for you unless you're prepared to spend $100 in a day or have a plan to exchange that money back when you get to your home country. Although there are little terminals in certain train stations where you can exchange cash for cash. I think we've seen maybe 2 or 3 of those, so I'm not sure how common it will be to find them.
Very true. I definitely recommend looking locally and finding a establishment that has a low exchange rate and doesn't charge you too much money to actually transfer your money into Japanese yen.
So not the airport. The airport is the worst place you can do this. They will pretty much take your money and half it to split it for you. As far as the amount goes, like money-wise per day, it's really completely up to you. We always pay for like our tickets and our lodging and our trains in advance for the JR Pass and such, so we just take enough cash to live on. So say for our food and our local travel and fun things like excursions and stuff like that, maybe anywhere from $30 to $100 a day. I mean, it really depends on you and how luxurious you're looking to live.
It's very true. It's your vacation, so if you want to have a budget vacation, you can easily do that. But if you want to spend a bunch of money, I mean, no better place to spend a bunch of money than in Japan.
True. So no matter what your budget is, you're gonna be good.
All right, so before someone else comes over and asks us for a cigarette, we're gonna get up and go somewhere else.
The next question is, how much Japanese do you need to know, and can you travel without knowing any Japanese in Japan?
So we actually did a video on Japanese words and phrases that you need to know while traveling to Japan.
Link that up there for you.
Somewhere.
Somewhere up there.
We'll have it up there for you to check out. But short answer is, you don't need any Japanese per se to go to Japan. You're not going to be stopped, and customs you can get through without any Japanese. So you can go with no Japanese at all without any issues. But I will say that if you learn even the smallest bit of Japanese, your trip to Japan will be that much more flavorful, exciting. It'll just enrich yourself so much more, even if you just know how to say hello, goodbye, or that's cool, or
thank you.
or even just learn the basic syllabary, which is hiragana. Learning that will help you not only translate when you read something and it's in hiragana and you can't take a picture of it with your phone on Google Translate. You can just sound it out, type it into your app, and you'll be on your way.
Yeah, to add to that, on the Google Translate app, there is an option to take a photo of Japanese text and highlight it, and it'll translate that as best it can to English, which is really helpful. It's not perfect by any means.
Definitely not perfect.
But if you're just looking at like an ingredient, say on a menu, or if you're looking at like a storefront, something like that, it can translate a few words at a time. So that does help. But I mean, I think that the people of Japan deserve for you to learn thank you and excuse me. And it's super easy. So yeah, watch that video and it'll be so much better than knowing nothing.
So while you don't need to know Japanese to go to Japan, you should learn at least about the Japanese language and the culture itself before going, just so you don't make a fool of yourself while you're there.
Exactly.
This is a nice spot to answer your next question.
Which is, how long should you go to Japan for your first trip?
This is such a loaded question. So I would say for a trip to Japan, I wouldn't go less than 2 weeks.
Personally.
Our first trip to Japan was 3 weeks, and that felt like a good amount of time, but at the same time, nowhere near enough time.
I don't think it ever will feel like enough time.
No matter how long you go, it probably will never feel like you've
No.
done all that you can or seen all that you can see, unless say you're there for years on end. But the tourist visa for Japan only lasts 90 days, so you only have up to 90 days to visit Japan
At a time.
as a tourist.
Mm-hmm. And when you compare our first trip and our second trip, they were 3 weeks and then 2 weeks. And it was a huge difference, honestly, huge. Neither of them were long enough, but the 3-week trip felt like we were satisfied. Like we felt like we really did get a ton out of our trip, and we felt like although we weren't ready to go home, we kind of were, like a lot more than the 2-week trip, which honestly felt like it was still just getting started when we had to go back to the airport. So
It's very true, and it really depends on what you want to do in Japan. Say you just want to go Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, and that's it. You don't want to go even too far away from those places. 2 weeks, you can even do that in 1 week and spend 3 days in Tokyo and 4 days split between Osaka and Kyoto. And you can see a good amount of things and have a great vacation. So even if you only have 1 week to go to Japan, you should still go.
yeah.
Just know that you won't have as many options as we did on our recent trip, where we went from the southern part of Japan all the way up to Hokkaido, and we went to Okinawa as well.
And that was 6 weeks, and that one felt great.
Everyone told us we'd be rushed for the entire trip, but I mean, having the whole thing planned out worked out really well, and we had a great time. Still wasn't enough time though, so keep that in mind.
Yeah.
No matter how long you go to Japan, you're probably not gonna feel like you have enough time,
Yeah.
but at least 1 week.
Yeah, at least 1 week,
To
please.
answer your question.
Unless you live in Australia.
True.
You can go whenever then. But I think that one thing that you can do to make your time feel like it was spent better, per se, would be to not create like a strict itinerary. I know a lot of people that we know and that we've heard of, when they travel, they do create like an itinerary for every single day. And I know that you have to like plan where you will be in the country. Like you have to book your Airbnbs, your hotels, all that. So that makes sense. But I don't think that you should book each day with what you're going to be doing each hour. Like I really feel that that will make your time pass much quicker, and you will feel like super rushed. Like I mean, I couldn't imagine that for us. The way we do it is a lot more low key. Like we'll plan where we're going to be, write down a few things we want to see while we're in that area, and then just kind of like go day to day and do what feels good. So that helps a lot in my opinion.
Yeah, as long as you have, I mean, a general idea of what you want to do and where you want to be, that's good enough.
So the next question we're going to talk about is related to the food service industry, and it is about tipping. A lot of people aren't sure whether tipping is necessary or expected when you are eating in restaurants in Japan.
So, as a general rule, in Japan, tipping is very unheard of. Very many restaurants you go to, if you leave a tip, they will just think that you accidentally overpaid. They'll run out of the restaurant, chase you down, or even keep the money there waiting for you to come back and pick up the money that you left.
Yep. I actually have a friend who left a tip in Japan her first week there and went back to the restaurant a year and a half later, and they had a little envelope with her name on it, ready to give her tip back, and it was like $2. I mean, it was crazy. But yeah, in some parts of Japan, it's even considered rude to tip, like you're insulting their service. Like, they really take pride in being able to pay their industry workers enough that they don't need tipping, and they're just held to a higher standard for that.
There are some exceptions though. There are Western style restaurants or cafes that have adopted sort of a Western style tipping standard where they have a tip jar up by the cashier, and after you pay, you get your change back. And it's always nice to drop in some change because I feel like they're also getting paid a little less than other places like typical Western style restaurants and cafes. And so they're counting on your gracious tips to help them live.
But yeah, it's really never expected. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. If it's a Japanese traditional restaurant, I would steer clear of tipping.
The only time I would actually tip is if I saw a jar that said tips on it, like in the restaurant we were talking about, because you're never sure, and most of the time you're not tipping.
Yeah. And then on the topic, really quick, this was not a question, but I have heard a couple people being confused about this. Waiters and waitresses in Japan are not going to come up to you unless you ask for them to. So when you're sat at a table, you do need to get their attention to get your water, sometimes even to get your menu, definitely to order. So please don't think that the waiters and waitresses are ignoring you or being rude if they are not showing up at your table every 5 minutes like in the Western countries, because it's super different, and you do have to really uncomfortably raise your hand or make eye contact or say sumimasen, like something to let them know that you're ready for their attention.
Very true.
Yeah. So the next question is, what is the best season of the year to visit Japan?
This is hard. It's a good question. So we've been to Japan in the spring 2 times, in the fall once. This year we're going to be there in the summer, which we've been told we should not go in the summer. Then we'll be back again in the fall. We haven't been in the winter, so
sorry if the winter's the best.
Can't really say either or, but it really just depends on what you want to see, what your personal preferences. I feel like the weather in the fall is amazing.
It's perfect.
You can't beat the weather in the fall, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
The weather in the spring is great. It's a lot more. There's more rain for sure.
A ton of rain, almost every day.
But you get the legendary, world-renowned Sakura cherry blossom trees, and in my opinion, that might make it the best season to visit Japan.
It makes it well worth the rain, that's for sure. The overcast and the rain is nothing compared to the cherry blossoms, so it's like a huge recommendation of ours. But the fall is also gorgeous, and that's like our favorite season in general, like in America. So we were really excited to go, and it really is just breathtaking to see, especially up in the mountains, all of the ginkgo trees and the Japanese maple trees. They're super, super bright, and they're all over, so that's amazing too.
I would say definitely avoid middle of the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told by many Japanese natives that it is not worth going outside of your house in those seasons, or in that season, when it's really hot and muggy. It gets ridiculously humid, and there are very many hacks that you can do by going to a local convenience store or supermarkets. They have like cool packs and stuff like that for people who live there and have to deal with it every single year even. So it's absurdly hot from what we hear. We'll have a video obviously when we get there, and we'll tell you all about how hot it is. But if you have to choose between all 4 seasons, let's say spring or fall are definitely going to be the 2 best.
By far the best. But if you're looking at this question just as far as finances go, the most expensive time you can go to Japan is definitely the summer. It's almost double the price in the summer from all the airports that we ever look out of. So it's hot and it's expensive, and there's crazy bugs. So,
but there are a lot of festivals and parties. Like summer is a big, big party in Japan. Every little town will have its own festival and stuff. So if you want a lot of festivals and you want to go to every single festival and experience that, you're gonna have to suck it up and trek out into the summer months.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, then in the cheaper months to fly in are going to be anywhere from I want to say April to November. Those are like the highlighted months or excluding Golden Week. Golden Week is really expensive. It's also really crowded. Would never really recommend going during that time. Golden Week is a period of 10 days where no one works in Japan. So like all the major businesses and corporations are off for 10 days. Schools are off for 10 days. So everyone's traveling. The Shinkansens are booked. The hotels are booked. It's like the worst week to go to Japan. But yeah, spring or fall are gonna be financially better, visually better, weather better. Would recommend those two.
In our opinion, definitely spring or fall. But if you really love the winter, Japan is renowned for having some of the most beautiful snowfall and ski resorts, snowboarding, all those kinds of things up in Aomori. You can go to any of the mountains that have like really amazing picturesque landscapes, and you can go and ski and snowboard and have a great time. There's also snow festivals. So anytime you go to Japan, there's gonna be plenty to do.
Yes.
We just personally like spring and fall the best.
It's up to you.
So before we get to the next question, it's swing time. Remember that playground we saw earlier? We're headed there. All right, we've had a fun time at the park. I think it's time to head home while we answer this last question.
Yeah. So the last question is, how efficient really is the public transit in Japan? It is extremely efficient. The most efficient public transit system in the world.
I would say it's 99.9% efficient. It's almost scarily on time. Like, you can trust the timetables to 15 seconds most of the time, especially for Shinkansen. I think that's what you read, right?
Yeah, so Shinkansen timetables are held to a standard of being within 15 seconds on the departure and arrival minutes. Crazy. And it's true too. It's like on the dot every single time.
So yeah, I think it stems from the people of Japan relying heavily on public transport for going to school, going to work, not having as many cars in general because it's such a densely populated country. And so you end up having to rely on public transport.
So yeah, it is like insanely efficient. I would 100% recommend you use it for your trip to Japan. I would say never use a taxi, like unless in a case of emergency. I think that taxis, I mean, they're probably 100 times more expensive just for short trips and long trips. They also take longer than trains most of the time because the train systems are set up in a way that they go straight through the city. Whereas if you're in a car, you have to deal with the traffic of Tokyo, which is terrible. So
There's definitely
no upsides to taxis, in my opinion.
heavily trafficked.
Yeah.
If you're in Okinawa though, I will recommend that you
true.
take a taxi because there aren't as many trains, but there are buses.
The buses though aren't as accurate, like they're not online capable as much as the trains in other parts of Japan, so you don't actually have like a confident sense of when your bus will get there if it does. So they have like an Uber in Okinawa. It's called Japan Taxi, and it's an app. It's not like a huge corporation like the taxis in the main island, so it's more of an independent thing, and it's loads cheaper.
You can use that app in mainland Japan as well. I've seen a lot of people on the group saying that they use that, and I guess it works for them, but we'd rather save the money and experience Japan for what it is.
Right.
And
Trains,
the public transportation is a staple of Japan.
Exactly, you have to experience it. Like there's no reason for you not to. Even with kids, I mean, people are on the train with 3 and 4 children all the time. It's really normal. It's never a problem. I know that might be something that would keep people from wanting that experience, but in our experience, it is not. There's disabled people on the trains. It's very handicap friendly. It's great.
All in all, public transportation, reliable and great.
So I hope that answered a lot of your questions today. Obviously, there are probably thousands more that we could have answered and didn't. So please let us know if there's anything left that you are still interested in hearing about in the comments below. We would be happy to do another or several Q&As in the future. It's really enjoyable and we really love to share our knowledge with you guys. So yeah, let us know.
Thanks for coming along with us on this journey to the park,
Yeah.
and we'll see you next time.